afternoon. Myself, Dr. Sangeeta Ahivade, Associate Professor, Department of Microbiology, Mahatma Phule Mahavidyalaya, Pimpri. I am working there as head from last 20 years. Topic of my presentation today is bacteriophage technology, that includes isolation, characterization and application of bacteriophages. Bacteriophage technology, as we can say, this is a new branch of science, and this branch would help in future to cope up or to fight against the resistant bacterial flora. Now let us see first what are bacteriophages. Bacteriophages, they are the viruses of prokaryotes that can instantly kill a bacterial cell or can integrate into the genome of bacterial cell. They are the most numerous organisms, we can say, on the planet Earth, and they play a key role in the bacterial gene exchange and thereby bacterial pathogenesis. Next. These bacteriophages, they are of two types. As we can see here, their life cycle, it can be of two types: lytic bacteriophages and lysogeny bacteriophages. Lytic bacteriophages, they bring about lysis of the host cell. Bacterial cell, they can be killed with the help of viruses, and those viruses, they are nothing but bacteriophages. So, lytic bacteriophages, as you can see here, they can bring about lysis of the host cell, and lytic bacteriophages, they cannot kill the bacterial cell, but they can integrate their genome into the bacterial cell. Now, first two steps are common in both of them, that is attachment of bacteriophage onto the host cell surface. This is a bacteriophage. It gets attached onto the host cell surface, and then it penetrates its genome. As you can see here, this is a genome in the form of DNA. It is integrated, it is inserted into the host cell. So, once the genome is inserted into the host cell, that genome of bacteriophage, it takes up all the what we can say, the bacterial system into its hand, and it propagates, it makes its many copies into the host cell, and then it lyses the bacterial cell, and that's why the cycle is known as lytic cycle. In the lysogeny cycle, after injection of DNA into the host cell, that phage DNA, it gets integrated into the host genome, and then along with the host chromosome, passively that phage genome, it also gets propagated, and the state of phage genome, which is integrated into the host chromosome, that state is known as prophage state. So these are the two types of bacteriophages. When bacteriophage, it infects a bacterial cell. Bacteriophage, it infects a bacterial cell. It, on the plate, it gives you two kinds of plaques. What are the plaques? Plaques are nothing but the areas, clear areas, which are caused due to the bacteriophage, and how they are formed. That is nothing but the multiple rounds of infection caused by a single host into the bacterial lung. So all these are, in this case, they are called as clear plaques, whereas there are some bacteriophages, means these clear plaques are given by lytic bacteriophages, and second type of plaques, which are known as turbid plaques, which are given by, or these plaques are shown by lysogeny phages. Next. Why there is a need of bacteriophage? We all know that nowadays bacteria, they are getting resistant to whatever antibiotics are available in the market. strategy could be bacteriophages, which offer a new hope for medicine against illness. Next. Now let us see the occurrence and sources of bacteriophages in the nature. As we all know that bacteriophages are ubiquitous. Ubiquitous meaning they are present everywhere. Most abundant biological entity on this earth planet. If you estimate the number, you can say that there are almost 4.8 into 10 raised to 31 Faj particles on this earth planet. So they are ubiquitous in nature. They are present everywhere, as you can see here. In the river also you can find them, in human intestine, animal intestine, in lakes, tooth plugs, then ponds, high temperature environment, cockroaches, raw vegetables, activated sludge, fecal matter, sewage, soil, everywhere, flies also, everywhere these bacteriophages they are available. So once you identify the source of bacteriophages, then it becomes very easy to isolate them from their sources. Next. Why people or why in the world scientists they are switching over to bacteriophages as an alternative therapy against bacterial infection? Okay. So bacteriophages they have some ideal properties. What are those properties? As we all know, antibiotic it needs a lot of money to get that into the market. Starting from its discovery, then getting that thing in the market. But bacteriophages, as you can see here, cost of production is very simple one, or you can say cost effective production can be possible in liquid and powder formulation. They are available at the site of their host. So thus they are available and where they are almost needed. They do not have any corrosive action. They are highly safe, no side effects as that of antibiotics. They are highly specific in their action. They will not have any kind of side effect or action on all the you can say living things. They are very specific. Means bacteriophages they infect only bacteria. Bacteriophages are, as we have discussed earlier, they are the viruses. Viruses of whom? Viruses of bacteria. As now we are facing the problem of coronavirus. They are the viruses of human beings and animals. Likewise, in the nature, there are viruses of bacteria also, and these viruses they are termed as bacteriophages, and they are with the hope that in future many bacterial infections or many resistant bacteria could be killed with the help of bacteriophages. So the next point would be their effect on pathogenic bacteria is found to be highly effective. Pathogenic bacteria could be killed with the help of bacteriophages. Next. These bacteriophages they can be isolated from the environment. Okay. Once you isolate those bacteriophages from the environment, the second important thing is you have to characterize those bacteriophages prior to its classification. Characterization is must. So characterization and classification parameters which are included, they are nucleic acid, virion, serology character and physiology character. So depending upon all these characteristics, bacteriophages they are first identified and then they are classified as per the guidelines given by the ICD. Next. Bacteriophages which are found in the nature, they are of 4 types generally. They can be classified as tailed phages, then polyhedral phages, viruses, that is ICTV, according to morphology and nucleic acid. Next. As I have discussed earlier, phages which have been identified up till now all over the world, total 6,000 phage particles have been identified, and out of that it has been found that 98% of the bacteriophages, they are having the tails. As you can see here, they belong to the tail phages category. Okay, so among them 35% phages are from the Myoviridae, 61% phages are from the Symphoviridae, and 14% bacteriophages, they are from the Podoviridae family, and remaining 2% of the phages, they are non-tail phages. They are, you can say, they are rare phages. Next. So once phages have been isolated from the environment, their characterization is must. If you wish to use those bacteriophages as file control agent as therapeutic agent, the mandatory step is to characterize them. So characterization of bacteriophages is generally done as per the recommendation given by Ackermann sir in 2019, and those characterization points that they are plaque morphology, phage morphology, post-strange protein profile, restriction-digestion pattern of DNA, adsorption and growth kinetics. These are the important parameters based on which you can identify the organisms. And for the identification of adsorption and growth kinetics, you should have knowledge of MOI, which is nothing but multiplicity of infection. So determination of multiplicity of infection of bacteriophages. Then phage propagation and lysate preparation. Then bacterial growth curve determination and standardization of the host cell density. Next. Once you know the source of phage, then it becomes very easy to isolate these phages from the environment. So, very first step of this technology would be isolation step. So, that includes first selection of the source. From that source, you can isolate these phages easily. So, what you can do? You have to take a sterile container. We can use 250 ml sterile container, screw cap container rather. You can collect water in that container. Then you can treat that water with chloroform, 4 to 5 ml of undiluted chloroform. Then the mixture is shaken vigorously, and then vigorously shaken mixture is then kept in the refrigerator for almost 12 to 18 hours, and then that sample is centrifuged and filtered. So after centrifugation, you will get the aqueous layer, and that aqueous layer of the water, it is filtered through the membrane filtration assembly, whose filter size or the filter pore size is 0.20 micrometer. And then whatever filtrate you will get after the filtration, that filtrate is used as source of phages, and then again isolation of phages from the filtrate is done by double agar layer plaque assay technique. Next. So what is double agar layer plaque assay technique? It's easy technique. This is actually this technique was described in 1949 by Adams. So what we have to do in this, we have to take mid-log phase culture of the host. Okay, that has to be grown in a specific medium known as phage broth medium. It is similar to that of nutrient broth, but the only difference is you have to add some metal ions in the normal medium, so that changes to phage broth medium. Then you have to add 0.5 ml of the host bacterium in 3 ml of sterile soft agar, or which is called as top agar. What is soft agar or top agar? It consists of 0.6% agar or agarose in water. So in that soft agar, you have to add 5 ml of the 0.5 ml of the host bacterium and 0.2 ml of the filtrate which you have been isolated in the previous step. That filtrate 0.2 ml, and then mixture is added. This mixture or the content in the tube, they are mixed properly and poured onto the sterile nutrient agar plate. The plate can be incubated at 37 degrees Celsius, and it is observed for the plaque formation 24 hours. Next. When that phage, it infects a bacterial cell, as we have seen that those bacteriophages, they bring about lysis of the host bacterial cell. This is a bacterial cell, okay, and lytic phages, they bring about this lysis, and after lysis, as you can see here, many phage particles, they are released from the host cell. Almost 150 to 200 phage particles are released from the host cell. So from a single bacterial cell, many phage particles are released, and these released phage particles, they in turn infect the further bacterial cells which are in the periphery of them. So after a particular time period, you find a clear area on a plate after performing double agar layer plaque assay technique, and that clear area is nothing but a plaque. So plaque is the result of multiple round of infection, a clear circular clearing in the otherwise opaque lawn of densely grown uninfected bacterial cells. Next. As you can see, plaque morphologies, different types of plaque morphologies can be obtained or by different phages. As you can see, this is a plaque morphology of Salmonella phage, this is a plaque morphology of Pseudomonas aeruginosa phage, this is a plaque morphology of Klebsiella pneumoniae phage, and here is the description of each and every plaque of the respective phages. These phages, they based on their plaque morphology or this particular character can be useful in the identification of the particular phage. So once you isolate phage, the next step is its purification. You isolate phage and you cannot use that phage directly as a biocontrol agent. You have to purify that, and this purification step, it has to be carried out almost 8 to 10 times. So in the purification step, what we do, we have to select a single clear plaque on the plate, and that plaque has to be picked up with a sterile corporal that is suspended in 200 ml of phage broth medium. Then the flask is inoculated with 0.1 ml of the middle log phase culture, and the flask is then incubated at 37 degrees Celsius for 24 hours. After incubation, you have to centrifuge the content of the flask at 10,000 rpm for 20 minutes. And then whatever supernatant you collect, that supernatant is passed through the membrane filtration, membrane filter of pore size 0.20 microliter. And then the filtrate which you get, you have to determine the phage titer. What is phage titer? Phage titer is nothing but concentration of phages in that liquid. Phage titer of that filtrate. Filtrate is again, we can call it as lysate. As we know, bacterial suspension is there, that kind of same suspension is there. We call that suspension of phages as lysate. So you can determine phage titer in the filtrate by plaque assay method, and then you have to subject the sufficient volume of lysate to the membrane dialysis. This is very important in the purification step. Whatever lysate you get, that lysate has to be subjected to the membrane dialysis at 4 degrees Celsius with almost 3 changes of 25% Pg buffer, polyethylene glycol buffer 3 times, and then the purified phages are stored in SM buffer. SM stands for sodium magnesium buffer. So you can store these phages in SM buffer at either at 4 degrees Celsius or either at 4 to 8 degrees Celsius will do. Next. So such purified phages can be sent for the, or you can carry out electron micrograph studies of those phages. So electron micrograph study will reveal the exact morphology of the phage. Now we can see here Salmonella phage. This is its electron micrograph. Pseudomonas aeruginosa phage and Klebsiella phage. As we have discussed earlier, they belong to different families, Podoviridae and Myoviridae. For in case of Klebsiella pneumoniae, rest of the two phages, they are from the Podoviridae family. You can see, identify the phage, you can observe the morphology, and you can describe the morphology of these phages, and then you can assign those phages in the previously or formulated or in the existing classification system. Next. Phage morphology or electron micrograph studies of these phages, they are carried out by late Professor Dr. Hans Wolfgang Ackermann sir. have to purify those phages from the many plaques from the plate, and then you have to again prepare lysate in large quantity, and you have to find out the titer. Titer means concentration of phages in that lysate. So this is the procedure for that. You have to pick up a single plaque with sterile wall pourer. You have to suspend that plaque in the phage broth. Then you have to inoculate that phage broth with the mid-log phase culture of the bacterium, respective bacteria of the bacterium which is specific for the specific phage. Then you have to incubate the flask at 37 degrees Celsius for 24 hours. After incubation, again you have to centrifuge the content and at 10,000 rpm for 20 minutes at 4 degrees Celsius, and whatever supernatant you will collect, it has to be passed through the membrane filter of pore size 0.20 micrometer, and then you have to determine the size phage titer in the filtrate. Next, once you isolate the phages, next step would be you have to study its physiological properties. You have studied its plaque morphology, phage morphology. Now we have to study the physiology of that virus, that phage. So one concept is there which is called multiplicity of infection. So whenever you wish to study the phage growth characteristics, and phage growth characteristics can be studied very well by experiment known as one-step growth curve experiment. So the success of that one-step growth curve experiment is dependent upon the standard host bacterial cell density that is able to yield maximum plaques on the plate. Actual number of phages or the viruses that enters in any host bacterial cell, as you can see, say it is a statistical process. Means what? A single bacterial cell will be infected by many phages, but how many phage particles has to be attached onto that host cell surface? We cannot say that. It is a statistical process. Many phage particles will get attached. A single phage will insert its DNA, or more than one phage particles they can insert their DNA into the host cell. So that's why we can call it as a statistical process. Some cells, as I already told you, may absorb more than one virus particles, while others may not absorb any. So the probability that a single cell will absorb n virus particles, n is the number of that virus particles, when inoculated with an MOI of m. MOI can be designated as m. So it can be calculated for a given population using Poisson distribution. As we all know, Poisson distribution is a statistical test where you can find out the result, or you can say it is used for the rare events only. Poisson distribution can be used for the rare events only. So in this case, where m is the multiplicity of infection, n is the number of viral particles that enter in the host bacterium, and p is the probability that the target bacterium that gets infected by n viral particles. Next. So the average percentage of cells that will become infected as a result of inoculation with the given MOI can be obtained from this equation. That is, if the suspension of virulent phage is added to a growing culture of sensitive bacteria in broth, so that the number of phage particles exceeds the number of bacteria, so that at that time the value or the MOI will be more than 1. After infection, the culture becomes clear as a result of lysis of virtually all the bacteria. So what is the meaning of this particular sentence? Suppose you are using 100 bacteria and you are using 100 phages, or you are using 100 bacteria and 1000 phages. Then what is that MOI value actually? MOI is nothing but ratio of infectious agent upon the host bacteria. Here the infectious agent is phage and host bacteria is a specific bacteria for its infection. So 1000 upon 100, the value will come 10. So MOI 10, that means the lysis, all the host bacterial cells will get lysed by the number which have been added to that bacterial culture, 100 and 1000. So this ratio, that ratio finally will give you a value, and depending upon the value you can decide whether lysis would be there or there would be no lysis. So the multiplicity of infection, or MOI, is the ratio of infectious agent to infection targets. So what is MOI? MOI is nothing but phages divided by bacteria. So whatever value you get after that, the calculation, that will be the MOI value. Generally the MOI value should not exceed more than 1. If the MOI is 1, that means the number of phages is equivalent to number of host bacteria. Why this value is important one? If you wish to identify different phases of the growth of that virus into the bacterial cell inside a host cell, then for that matter the value should be less than 1. We don't want to kill the host cell immediately. We have to find out what are the what you can say what are the mechanisms going on. Once the phage inserts its DNA into the host cell, after that what happens? We have to study each and every step. So for that matter, the thing is, you have to find out, or you have to take a ratio of bacteriophage to bacteria in such a way that the bacterial cells, they should not get killed. So the MOI value, to find out the one-step growth curve experiment properly, to carry out a one-step growth curve experiment properly, the MOI value should be less than 1. Next. So methodology for determining MOI value, or MOI, multiplicity of infection. For that matter, we have to prepare the lysate, phage lysate. We have prepared it. We have discussed all the things previously. Then second important thing, whatever bacterial cells you are using, you have to standardize the cell density of that bacterial cell. So what is the purpose of that? The purpose of standardization of the host cell density is to determine the exact proportion of bacteriophage to cell ratio. Means you should know the exact number of bacteria, you should know the exact number of phage particles, then and then only it will be possible for you to find out the MOI. So because MOI is nothing but ratio of phage number divided by bacterial number. Next. So this is a procedure to find out the standardize the host cell density. What we have to do, we have to grow the host bacteria at 37 degrees Celsius in any medium. You can use here nutrient broth or phage broth for 6 to 7 hours, so that you get a mid-log phase culture of the bacterium. Then you have to determine the optical density of the culture at specific wavelength. Okay, wavelength has to be decided. When you study the growth curve of bacteria, you have to study it at specific wavelength. So here 650 nanometer wavelength you can use for determining the growth curve of bacteria. Then what you have to do, you have to find out, you have to take a mid-log phase culture, okay, and analyze the host cell. For that mid-log phase culture, you have to analyze to find out what is the number of viable bacteria in that. So you have to analyze the host cell for cell count by direct microscopic count or by total viable count method. So but here total viable count method is preferred, because in the direct microscopic count method you may get dead and live, both the types of bacteria, and here in this particular case we need specifically the live bacteria. Then what we have to do, we have to take varied aliquots of the mid-log phase culture of the bacteria. Varied aliquots means different volumes of that mid-log phase culture, and you have to mix that with the fixed volume of the phage suspension, which is called lysate. So that fixed volume is 0.1 ml, and these two things, they are transferred to a soft agar, which is nothing but less amount of agar in water. It is there in the tube, 3 ml, and then you have to pour separately on sterile nutrient agar plate, and then you have to select the host aliquot, the host bacteria, which you have taken different aliquots of that host bacteria, and you have to select which aliquot is giving you maximum plaque forming unit. Then direct microscopic count, then that suspension you will take different aliquots of that suspension and then will mix that with the phage suspension, bacteriophage suspension, but that phage lysate volume is fixed, only the bacterial volume is varying. So here in this case, when you mix and when you perform plaque assay technique, you get different number of plaques on the plate. So you have to decide, you have to select the aliquot of the host bacterium which is giving you maximum plaques on the plate. So here 0.5 ml of the aliquot of the host, when it is mixed with 0.1 ml of the lysate, it is giving you maximum plaques to you. So that combination is selected. This particular combination is selected for the one-step growth curve experiment. Next. This is for Klebsiella pneumoniae. Next. This is for Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Next. Now let us see, let us calculate, let us understand the concept of MOI. So as I discussed earlier, MOI is nothing but PFU upon CFU. PFU stands for plaque forming unit divided by colony forming unit. So colony forming unit, they are given by bacteria. Plaque forming units, they are given by bacteriophages. Okay. So now here the titer is given. Host count is 2.6 into 10 raised to 8, which is a mid-log phase culture of that host, and phage titer, it is actually 4 into 10 raised to 7. 4 is missing there. It is 4 into 10 raised to 7. Okay. So once you get the value of titer of phages in the lysate and titer of bacteria in the suspension, then it becomes very easy to calculate MOI value. So MOI is PFU upon CFU. What we have done? We have taken 0.1 ml of the phages, but in the 1 ml lysate, how many phages are there? 4 into 10 raised to 7. Divided by 0.5 ml of the host, but in 1 ml, how many phage host bacteria are there? 2.6 into 10 raised to 8. So after calculation, you get the value as 0.030. That is the MOI value for Salmonella phage. Next. Same thing, same way you have to calculate MOI for another phages as we have calculated it for Klebsiella phages. It comes around 0.138. Next. For Pseudomonas phage, it is almost 0.0463. So in this way MOI is calculated. Next. Once MOI concept is clear, then now we have to study the adsorption kinetics. What do you mean by adsorption kinetics? Adsorption kinetics means, as I have told you, for every virus there is an attachment site on its host. So for bacteriophages there are receptors on the bacterial cell surfaces. So these bacteriophages, they get adsorbed onto the host cell surfaces. As in the case of coronavirus, as we all know that on the human cell there is a ACE2 receptor for coronavirus. In the similar manner, for the phage there is a receptor on the bacterial cell, and that phage it gets adsorbed onto the bacterial cell. How it gets adsorbed, how much time it takes for the adsorption or the attachment, and how it brings about the perfect attachment, that kind of study is called as bacteriophage adsorption kinetics. So the determination of the rate of attachment of phage is a fundamental study on phage ecology. This is very important concept. In 1931, Kruger, he derived one derivation where from this equation, one equation he derived, and from this equation we can come to know what is the rate of adsorption of a particular phage. So details are given here. Next. So adsorption kinetics, this is a procedure for adsorption kinetics. Next. Once, what you have to do, you have to mix host and phage, and after mixing you have to take out the aliquots after every 1 minute. So this has to be followed for 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes you have to see whether the unadsorbed phages are there in the mixture or not. So this is nothing but the adsorption kinetic studies. Theoretically, one should think that, one should say that when phage and host they are mixed at MOI 0.1, MOI 0.1, that means 100 phages and 10 bacteria. Sorry, 10 phages and 100 bacteria. So that time the MOI will come 1. So 10 phages, 100 bacteria, there are chances that all the 10 phages they would get adsorbed onto the host cell surface. But this is a theoretical thing, and you can imagine that once you mix the 100 phage particles and 10 bacteria at this point, after 10 minutes you can say that all the phage particles have been adsorbed onto the host cell surfaces. No free phage is left in the suspension. This is a theoretical thing, but practically this doesn't happen. Practically, after a specific time period of adsorption or attachment, still at the end of 10 minutes, there are phages which are left, residual phage particles we say. That means for the adsorption or during the attachment process or adsorption process, some kinds of hindrances are created which will inhibit adsorption or attachment of phages onto the host cell surface. So this graph tells you that this is a theoretically, this is the thing, but practically this doesn't happen. Next. So these are the adsorption rate constant for 3 different phages which we have discussed earlier. This is for the Salmonella, this is for the Klebsiella, and this is for the Pseudomonas aeruginosa phage. So adsorption rate constant have been studied, they have been calculated as you can see here at the specific MOI values which is mentioned in the graph. Next. So once the MOI value is determined, it is now very easy for us to carry out one-step growth curve experiment. So one-step growth curve studies are very important. What we understand or what kind of information we get from that? One-step growth curve studies are performed to identify different phases of bacteriophage lytic process. When a virus or bacteriophage it gets attached onto the host cell surface and it integrates its genome into the host cell, what kinds of processes it brings about there inside the host cell, and from there we can find out some parameters, and those are different periods of we can say growth cycles. First is the eclipse period, then latent period, rise period, and burst size. So from this study we can find out some solid evidence. We can get some solid evidences regarding a specific phage. We can come to know the physiological properties. We can get the physiological property of that isolated phage. Next. This is a procedure protocol for one-stage growth curve experiment. Very important one. We have to take mid-log phase culture of the host bacteria and we have to add the lysate at specific MOI value. Then you have to allow the phages to get adsorbed onto the host cell surface for 10 minutes. Here 10 minutes time is decided for those phages, that's why 10 minutes. Some phages they need 15 minutes, some phages they need 15 minutes, some phages they need 1 hour for the adsorption. So you have to first find out if phage that from the adsorption kinetic studies, you have to find out how much time is required for the attachment. So in this case, the time which we have identified as 10 minutes. So allow the phages to get adsorbed onto the host cell surface for 10 minutes at 37 degrees Celsius. Then you have to centrifuge the mixture, and after centrifugation, the pellet which you get at the bottom of the tube, that pellet is resuspended in a fresh medium, which is the phage broth medium, in a 100 ml flask. Then after that you have to keep that flask in a shaking condition, and you have to take 2 samples from the that flask. Each sample would contain only 0.1 ml of the liquid from that sample. After every 5 minutes, over a period of 1 hour, you have to take out the sample. As we are removing 2 samples, first sample is added in a tube containing 9.9 ml of the phage broth, and second sample is added in a tube containing 0.9 ml and then it multiplies inside, what that fat, it doesn't break that or the kill the bacterial cell on its own. What we are doing, we are allowing that bacterial cell to get killed or to get destroyed with the help of some chemicals which we can add in the mixture. So, eclipse period is a state that may be detected only by artificially lysing the bacterial host cell to release the virion particles. It is not part of the life cycle of that bacteriophage. This eclipse period, what kind of information it will give you? Eclipse period will give an information about the development of first phage particle in the host cell. So one first phage particle is produced, it will not on its own lyse the host cell. There should be more than one phage particles. Almost 50 to 100 phage particles or 200 to 250 phage particles when they are formed, then only they are able to break open the bacterial cell and they can come out. But here in this case, through the eclipse period, we can come to know at what time a single first phage particle is produced. Now, what is the latent period? Latent period is the delay between phage adsorption onto the bacterium and subsequent phage progeny release. Means what? Suppose phage is adsorbed onto the host cell surface, then it has inserted its DNA into the host cell, it multiplied there, and then those multiplied phages from inside, they create pressure on the cell membrane, cell wall, and then all the phage particles, they are released out. So the time between adsorption and release of phage particle, that time period is called a latent period. Okay. So the minimum latent period will also be described as a constant period because plaque forming units do not appreciably change in number until culture lysis has begun. Next. Third important concept is about the rise period. What is rise period? Rise period is, it refers to the rise in plaque forming units observed upon lysis during the one-step growth curve. Bacterial cell get lysed, and one bacterial cell after lysis, the number of phage particles will go on increasing. Okay, so that is the rise period. And fourth one is the burst size. What is burst size is very important. Many students they are not having clear concepts regarding burst size. Here now from the definition you might not understand the concept. Let us see for the things for this particular concept. Let us first understand what is meant by burst size. The average number of phage virion released by the lysis of a single bacterial cell. How many phage particles are released from a single bacterial cell after infection? That is nothing but a burst size. Next. See, here in this graph, this is a one-step growth curve. This is called one-step growth curve. Eclipse period is artificially we have destroyed or we have what we can say killed the cell. This is the burst size. Eclipse period. This is the latent period. Latent eclipse period is of 15 minutes. Latent period is of 10 minutes. But whatever phage particles we have got, based on that we got whatever data we collected. From that data we plotted this graph, and after plotting the graph we can get an information regarding the latent period, regarding the eclipse period, regarding the rise period, and this is the burst size. So these two we can say curves are there. One is with chloroform, another one is without chloroform, and finally